Clubhouse.
When I think of what you all have endured, that fire in Dillon, they're the broken bits that will someday create a beautiful mosaic for you here.
It's already beautiful, Jeannie. I understand stewardship. My husband and I will honor it.
Welcome to Pod Clubhouse's coverage of Dutton Ranch, the newest entry into Yellowstone's universe of shows. This is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Tonight we're discussing episode 2 of Dutton Ranch, Earn Another Day. Tonight's episode was written by Jacob Foreman and directed once again by Christina Alexandra Voros. Ms. Voros is also the director of photography on the show. Fans of The Madison will remember that she served in the role of DP and also director of all 6 episodes of The Madison as well. So this is the second show she's doing kind of double duty on.
I feel like you can see her hand in this. I see it in the cinematography and everything.
She has a style for sure.
She does.
And one that I like. I like it a lot. I think it's a lot of the classic Yellowstone that you and I both enjoy. And those long shots that don't rush you through the nature and watching people do things, which is a hallmark, I think, of the Yellowstone shows.
Agreed. So just a community note, listeners, please join us over on Facebook in the Yellowstone 1923, 1883, the Madison and Dutton Ranch discussion and news group to discuss Dutton Ranch and the whole universe of Taylor Sheridan and Yellowstone shows. Just a reminder, we assume that you've watched this episode, so if you haven't, please stop. Go watch it and come on back because we're not going to go step by step and recap this episode, but we will definitely spoil you. So go watch, come on back.
The Dutton Ranch series creator, executive producer, and showrunner Chad Feehan, he was actually let go of the show in April, 3 weeks before the show premiered. So from the reports that I read, while Feehan delivered on his duties as a writer, there seems to have been several complaints from important people on the show, in front of the camera and behind the camera, about how he performed in his showrunner capacity. And the people, including Taylor Sheridan, were allegedly very unhappy with the overall production of season 1. Now, there's no word on who will replace him for the inevitable season 2. This all happened at the end of April, so it's relatively still kind of new and fresh. It was first reported by Variety. My understanding is he actually he stayed with the show all the way through the post-production of the first season. So season 1 was locked before he was let go. So his fingerprints will very much be a part of this first season.
And stuff was going on over with Tulsa King too, right?
Yes. Tulsa King also earlier this year reportedly lost their showrunner. Their showrunner was let go right before, I think, filming of their season 3. I think it's season 3 that they're getting ready to film. It was like right before they were like ready to turn on the cameras, they let go of their showrunner. So I think in that case, they're leaving it up to that episode's director to kind of pull double duty as showrunner in addition to director. I think that's how
quite a bit of turnover for this universe for us to be dealing with.
Well, I think this is some growing pains, though, in the 101 Studios and Taylor Sheridan empire, because I feel like we are so accustomed to Taylor writing all of the episodes and directing a bunch of them, but he's always been much more of a writer on the show. But with the most recent iterations, he's still obviously there in the background. These are his characters. I'm sure him and Linson, who is the co-creator with Taylor, are still having a lot of input, but they seem to have taken their foot off the gas a little bit, for whatever reason, where they're, I think, focusing on whatever specific projects that they're focusing on and not necessarily the entire empire. Like, one of the complaints of Marshall's has been that it doesn't feel like a Taylor Sheridan show. It doesn't feel like Yellowstone, but it wouldn't necessarily, because other than Casey and Rainwater and Mo, those couple of characters, and Tate, like, Taylor's not involved with that show as far as I'm aware. Like, I'm sure he's an executive producer on it, but like, he's not writing those episodes. He's not directing those episodes as far as I know. I think there's some growing pains as he loosens the reins on these. There's these growing pains of who do you entrust to write the shows and run the shows. Does that make
Well,
sense?
and I'm sure for the cast who has been, together for so long, it's a lot for them to have to adjust to somebody else giving them instruction, telling them what to do. And it's inevitable in the back of their head. It's like, this is not how Taylor would have done it, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure. So those are big boots to fill. So I feel for whoever is coming into those jobs.
I mean, this episode is actually an example of that a little bit of the actors getting used to it, because I just read Cole Hauser was giving an interview in larger about the series so far, and someone had asked him about the fact that Rip at the end of this episode takes the dead Wes and moves the body and throws it down the new train station, the unsafe mine, and doesn't tell Beth about it. The fact that he's kind of continuing the ways of how things operated at the Yellowstone Ranch. He said that he was surprised by that, and that he thought that Rip had kind of turned a corner and that he wouldn't be keeping those things from Beth, or I think lie about it was the word used in the question in his initial reaction. But he said that he talked to Chad Feehan, the person that we've been discussing, about it, and Chad made him realize that he was actually doing it in order to protect Beth and protect this new life that she seems so committed to wanting to lead. And so that Cole in this interview said that he came around to the idea that he wasn't lying to Beth, or he was, but it was for her own happiness, to try and protect her own happiness, which for Rip, protecting Beth at all costs is always kind of his governing action. So,
right. Boy, I want to jump into all of that, but let's start off at the beginning, because I thought this was a really cool move that we actually went back as a flashback to 8 days after the fire. I wasn't expecting this at all. I 100% just thought we were not going to see Montana again. We're not going to figure out how they made this transition. I actually very much enjoyed it. I'm glad that we got a little more world building, a little bit more understanding of how they made this decision to leave. I kind of felt like this was like the wake that we were going to. Like, we found out about the death in the first episode of their life in Montana, but then this was like the wake. We got to go back and kind of talk a little bit and see it again and remember and have like a little moment, and sort of like even the way that Rip was dressed, which I disliked a great deal. The zip up hoodie, you guys. Oh my goodness, with the no shirt on underneath. First of all, I yelled, Rip is wearing a hoodie, and I was weirded out. Then I was like, it's a zip up hoodie? Oh no.
The funniest thing is that you and I comparing, we did not watch these together, and both of our notes matched exactly in that exact order of he's wearing a hoodie. It's a zip up hoodie. Like, it feels like a crime against sartorial nature. It
felt horrible to see him like that. But also, using my analogy of a wake, it felt like, okay, this is somebody who is like grieving and looks like a mess. You wouldn't judge somebody about how they were dressed or their hair looked like or whatever, days after they lost someone. And this was like they lost their whole life here. So I was like, okay, this zip up hoodie, it's like representing grief and when people look disheveled because it's no good.
I think that's actually a great analogy and a good metaphor to draw on. But also, I think it hit home the fact that they lost everything.
Yeah, he's wearing clothes that aren't even his clothes.
That is not out of Rip's closet that he has the black zip-up hoodie. That is donated by some kindly souls. As we pan down and we see it's 8 days after the fire, there's a sign on the store, pray for Dillon, which puts us in a location in Montana. Dillon, Montana, which is about 2 hours southwest from Paradise Valley, which is where the Yellowstone Ranch was located. This is a little bit southwest of that. So we know where the ranch was located generally now, and Jeannie Edwards is going to mention Dillon later on in the episode. So they're world building, like you said, but also like kindness of strangers, right? Like, I don't think he would choose to wear a zip black up hoodie if he could, but I think it's literally all he has right now. Right.
So it was like, we're willing to see this version of him for a minute. We give him a pass.
This is some inside baseball for Yellowstone fans, like mainline Yellowstone. If you hadn't watched the show again, take Caroline's advice, pause this, go watch all 5 seasons of Yellowstone, then come back.
And start with 1883 and then come back.
But it was that Walker, longtime nemesis of Rip Wheeler, who is the one who gave him the tip about the Edwards Ranch being for sale, which we learn is 5,000 acres. I don't know, the place I read 7,000 acres. I don't know where they got that from. It says very clearly here, 5,000 acres, and it comes with 175 Black Angus cows. What did you think of the Walker callback of all the people to tip him off about Texas?
Well, I was happy to have anybody from our old world be a part of this world. I needed to see some faces that were familiar. So that was actually what I was feeling. I was feeling like, oh, good. Okay, Walker, yay. I was thinking more about that and less about like, what was the relationship between Walker and Rip and how do I feel about him being the one and all that. I wasn't thinking that hard about that as much as, okay, it's sensible that somebody would have given him a tip, and I like that we got this cameo and got a chance to see him again. Anytime we get to see someone back from one of the other shows, I'm gonna squiggle in my chair and be like, yay, just to see them again, like whoever it is. Did you have a big reaction to seeing Walker?
I was surprised that they went with Walker because they had such a contentious history. I figured they would have used Taylor Sheridan's character from Yellowstone, who was the Texas guy who owns the 4-6s, Travis Wheatley. I figured that's who they would have gone with.
Or what about Jimmy?
Or Jimmy, there's also, Teeter's down there.
Teeter doesn't seem like she would have been knowledgeable.
But Travis is. If anyone's going to know ranches available in Texas, it's going to be Travis. The guy
100%.
He's King Texas Ranch guy. So that's surprising. So I think using Walker was an interesting thing to see. That time has moved on. Old Rip would not have taken CPR from Walker if his life depended on it. So now he's literally moving his entire family halfway across the country based on this tip from this guy. So I think
maybe
it's
we're
also
going with that's showing like some level of desperation.
Yeah, desperation for sure, but also some growth. The fact that he was open to it, right?
Yeah.
And also, I think there's a nice parallel because we meet Zachariah Moss in this episode, who is a convict coming out of prison, very similar to Walker, another ex-convict coming out of prison, which is where Rip loves to recruit from his days at the Yellowstone.
The second I saw him pull up at that prison place, I was like, oh, we're just pulling from the same deck of cards that we play in Yellowstone, huh? This is how we get all our ranch hands. We just go find out who's being let out of prison this week.
Let's fast forward to how the episode fast forwards to the conversation between Jeannie Edwards, from whom Rip and Beth are buying the Edwards Ranch, soon to become the Dutton Ranch. And I think this was an interesting conversation because Jeannie really, one, she gives us some plot here talking about how the Jacksons and Tim Peddle have been coveting this land, which you and I kind of guessed at last week, for 20 years. The stewardship question, which is always a hallmark of a Taylor Sheridan show, gets brought up here. And so I think that made it important. Let's take a listen to this first clip.
Many people wanted to buy this place.
The Jacksons have been after it for 20 years.
But they would have turned it into something soulless. I don't want this ranch to become something I can't recognize.
We want to keep it just as it is.
The prospect of someday feeding folks with our beef, that was Billy's dying pride and joy. Rip, I'm trusting that you will fulfill that prospect. That's all that matters to me. Because he was all that mattered.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know your daddy, except by reputation and what I later read in the papers.
Well, no one really knew him.
He was a man, though. And I suspect not all that different from Billy.
I don't think so.
When I think of what you all have endured, that fire in Dillon, you're the broken bits that will someday create a beautiful mosaic for you here.
It's already beautiful, Jeannie. I understand stewardship. My husband and I will honor it.
There's a couple things that break down there. I'm curious if you're the broken bits that will make a mosaic, a beautiful mosaic one day. That was a very pretty line. I was curious if that struck your heart at all to hear.
Well, I appreciated their entire interaction. I don't know if the mosaic line hit me harder than any other part of it, because I just felt like they have had characters that have been on Yellowstone where you get the feeling, okay, this isn't an actor. This is an actual rancher or an actual blacksmith or an actual leathersman or whatever the person is. They're now playing this role. Now, I went back and looked up Jeannie, and she is not like an actual rancher or anything, but she gave that vibe. Even in her delivery of everything, like, even though she's a seasoned actor, I wasn't getting seasoned actor. I was getting like they actually went and found a woman who owned a ranch and they had her play this part. I think that's a compliment. I'm saying that she really felt like she embodied that person. The delivery of certain lines and stuff didn't necessarily come off like this seasoned, like I'm just reading this script kind of thing. It came out like a widow trying to kind of explain why she's choosing them over the Jacksons or over any other thing to do with this land. I'm saying that she was like exuding this authenticity, and that's what I was sort of picking up on. The one thing I was not digging, and as a Texan and as a woman, I just can't abide by this. I do not understand why her ears were bent down with that hat. There is such a guys, there's such a craft about getting a hat that is like made for your head. Nobody who saw that hat on her, I'm just going to go with she was wearing her husband's hat or something like that. And maybe that's why it was bending her ears the way that it was. But it bothered me so much that some of those beautiful lines like the mosaic flew over me because I was just sitting there thinking, whose hat are you wearing? Because there's no way you went to a hat shop and they let you walk out of there with your ears bent in half saying that hat looks good on you. Like, I don't know what's happening here. I know that's a silly thing, but I was just at rodeo not but like 6-8 weeks ago, and they had these beautiful custom made hats that you could stand there and they would like measure your head and do all the steaming of the felt and everything. Like, it was beautiful. And so then to see this woman wearing this hat, I was like, oh, I'm like grabbing at my neck. Like, I cannot. What did you feel about Jeannie? Was she feeling like one of those actors like we've seen in the past where it's like, hey, is this person like an actual person in this town and not an actor?
I didn't look her up like you did, but I had the exact same feeling because it felt like someone who had just been widowed. It felt really authentic that she really just wanted to be able to honor her husband's memory and again, honor the land, which is that is something that both Rip and Beth, I think, would understand. I think there are some really important parallels here. I think it's not a coincidence that she takes a moment to draw a comparison between her past husband, Billy, and John Dutton. The fact that they would be similar men in how they would, and I think she's talking about similar men in how they approach the land and protect the land and stewardship of the land, which we just recently heard in the Madison. If you have watched any of Taylor Sheridan's shows, honoring the land, protecting the land, living with the land, these are core themes for him. I labeled this audio clip The Mission because I think Jeannie sets out for Rip and Beth, or gives words for Rip and Beth, what their goal is here as ranchers here now in Texas, which is exactly the same kind of mission statement that they had up in Montana. Respect the land, work with the land, protect the land, be a steward of the land, and it will provide for you. I think it's telling that Beth, she didn't have to say, we are not going to make any changes to it. That's how she opens the conversation. The idea that Billy's dream was to feed families with his Black Angus cows. That's the mission that Beth and Rip also want to have, and Beth spends a lot of this episode with Everett trying to make that come true. Yes, new place, new characters, new landscape, less mountains, though they do have mountains in Texas. I think the mission statement is the same. So I think this was an important scene for that, for me anyway. The last thing that was important in this scene, and I cut it out just for length of time, as the scene ends, Jeannie is walking off with Beth and she says, there's one last thing we have to talk about. That's Azul Ramos. I'm assuming the deal was that Azul had to come with the property. I'm curious if you took if you had a different assumption on what that conversation is, but the fact that we know Azul's father was the foreman of this ranch when it was the Edwards Ranch, and that Azul grew up there, and so Jeannie's probably known him since he was literally born, maybe. It seemed like he comes with the land also.
I think so. I think, or some sort of, agreement to continue his employment. We could say it that way. That 100% was going to be a part of it. I also thought that when she mentioned the part that she really hadn't been writing in a very long time, I think that was important because it was a reminder to all of us that there's a fair shot that Rob Will and that group knows that the Edwards were elderly and were not likely to be riding all over that land. So when they made the choice to dump Wes's body over there,
which we learned was Rob Will's decision, not Joaquin's, which I think is important.
Right. That I think that was going with this idea, and she like gave voice to it, that like nobody is really out here riding the way that anybody used to be. And so this was sort of like a safe place to dump a body because Jeannie's not out here, riding her horse around, and she very plainly said that. So I was like, okay, good. I'm glad that they sort of like solidified this reason of like, why would you choose this land? Why did you do that? And it's like, okay, well, because this is land that they know nobody's really monitoring in the same way, or they thought. They didn't really realize who bought what. It's kind of unusual to me that Beulah and the Jacksons, when she was like, oh, you bought the Edwards Ranch, it seems a little like y'all wouldn't have known that, especially if you were like completely into this, wanting this property. You guys weren't tracking it like.
Oh, I think she knew. I think she knew a family called the Duttons from Montana bought it. I think it was kind of faced to a name.
Right, and that makes sense. But also like, and just didn't have a chance to tell Rob Will like, hey, there's like new owners out there or whatever. Like, which maybe he doesn't care, and maybe it's like so new. Nobody. He was so coked up,
he probably wouldn't have remembered anyway. This is probably where he dumps problems. It's probably where he's done it for a long time. I don't think Wes is probably the first guy he has put down based on that behavior.
The way that Joaquin walked out there with him. No, I agree.
No, I think that's a really good pickup about why they would have used that land. But I think it also goes, I think that the whole Rob Will of it all and Joaquin and the fact that we're going to move the body because Joaquin was trying to clean up the mess, I think cuts against our idea last week that it was being done on purpose to sabotage the Duttons. I think that would have just been a bonus for the Jackson family, who obviously we did pick up on that conversation with Beulah and Beth in the 10 Pedal meat shop last week. We did pick up on, because I think we said it, Beulah seemed a little covetous of that land. This obviously cements that fact that this is desirable land that Beth and Rip have fallen into.
So overall, what do you think about this idea of doing this flashback, and especially doing it in episode 2, allowing us to go back to Montana, revisit that, finding out how they got the ranch? Was this important? Did we need this?
I think the episode would have been fine had they not had it. I'm very happy that they did. I'm a big fan of serialization. I'm a big fan of world building. I want to know all the details. I wouldn't mind if they went back to it one more time to show us the in-between. I think they're done though, because I think they connected the dots in the flashback of 8 Days After the Fire and then the flashback to that conversation with Jeannie. That feels like that's the end of it, but I love all of that because it gives it depth and it feels like it makes it all more real, right? Versus just dropping them in and now they're operating this place,
Right.
Great choice. And I think it ended up being an important choice. Really makes it more rich, which is what I expect from a Yellowstone show. Let's stick with Beth. So far in this show, I think the Beth and Everett scenes are some of my favorite. Everett is bringing out a really different side of Beth. I don't want to say kinder, gentler, because I respect Beth too much to reduce her to kinder, gentler, fluffy Beth. But she seems more reasonable, and she does seem gentler. She doesn't have an edge with Everett, which I feel like Beth leads with an edge with a lot of people. Not with Everett. And when she goes to see Claudio, she is determined in what she wants, but she's not browbeating him. She's not trying to humiliate him or kowtow him. And the Beth that we have seen a lot of times uses sharp words to get people back on their heels.
I think Everett's tone and the way that he handled everything at Claudio's with the little boy and giving him like the treats and just like the whole approach to it, she took her approach from him. Like, okay, this isn't a place where we come in acting, yelling and demanding and stuff like that. We come in giving sweets to the little ones and being kind and being just open and everything. I also thought I compared a lot of their interactions to her and John, but I actually think that this is more of like a grandfatherly relationship, like, because there's more respect here. She had a lot of baggage with John, and so she would talk to him. For those of you who don't remember or didn't watch Yellowstone, John's her dad. She had a lot of baggage with him and a lot of anger and a lot of pent-up stuff going on with him, where this felt like a more pure relationship, a more maybe grandfatherly, maybe uncle, something like that, where it's a little bit more removed. There's a lot less resentment or anger or anything built up there. And so she has like this different approach. I think there are so many people who, if they had turned on the radio and started singing aloud, she would have just turned that radio off or lit up a cigarette and blew smoke in their face or did something just outrageous.
Even before that, just telling her to slow down because she wasn't going above a Texas speed limit. Even that, and the fact that she listened to him, because you hear the truck decelerate like noticeably, like that's all not typical Beth behavior.
that respect. And you know, we talked about it in the last episode, so go back and listen if you want to hear all about the sea wolves and all about the hat that he was wearing and everything they were talking about.
I'm glad that they brought that up and explained it for the audience.
I'm glad they did too. And I'm glad that, you know, Beth, they had this moment where they were being very reverent about, you know, his medals and never to take his hat off and all that stuff. And again, I feel like they're speaking to the audience in that, and that they're like saying, if you're a veteran out there, like, we're a show who is respectful to the military and that type of stuff. So I feel like they were kind of showing like the personality of the whole show, you know, not unlike being stewards of the land and caring about animals, but also we're respectful to the military. And, you know, they're sort of creating the personality of this show and how they're going to treat the audience. I thought everything that was going on there, the respect for their elders, the respect for this bald businessman, you know, for Claudio, and for being cool with him. And she, you know, she was calmer, but she was still a businesswoman. Like, she still like negotiated with him and dickered with him.
Assertive, but not demeaning. Which
Not
we've seen Beth be
which is
so
her real
aggressive
way.
and out of the gate, like, you got a small penis and you smell like shit. Like, that's like typically how she opens conversations in these kinds of business negotiations.
Right.
We've seen her do that time and time again with market equities and all this other stuff. She didn't do that here. But before, I want to play the clip between her and Claudio because there's something very specific about it. But before we get that, though, I wanted to talk a little bit about Everett. I like that she tells him, be proud of them, be proud of your medals, never take off your hat. Because I think one of the things that struck out for me from Everett from Jump was the fact that he doesn't wear a cowboy hat. We've not seen him. It's 2 episodes now, and he always has his Seawolves hat on. He has pride in that hat. For as much as he didn't want to talk about it or didn't think it was very remarkable to talk about, he's clearly proud of that service and what he did. The line that he said, I was a young guy looking for someone to save and someone to fight, I think is a very good line that defines so many young men who are looking for themselves. And I'm thinking of that line and thinking about Carter as we watch Carter grow into a man on the show. It's going to be interesting how he treads that natural inclination to, I want to look for someone to save, which we've already seen him to do, and someone to fight, which we've already seen him do. So there's a nice little parallel there, especially if you're going to take Everett as this grandfatherly figure, how that kind of thinking plays into Rip and Beth, and as they negotiate this new land with the Jacksons and this coming, you know, it's going to be some coming antagonism, but also Carter, who is trying to figure himself out also. You hit on a fact that I think her saying that about the be proud of your service, be proud of your medals. It also reminded me back to regular mainline Yellowstone. Beth never particularly liked her brother Jamie at all, hated him, but she always had a soft spot for the youngest brother, Casey. And in part because of that was because he was a Marine vet from the wars and had won a ton of medals and had sacrificed for his country. She always had a very good soft spot for him for that and was always very respectful of that, though she didn't particularly respect him in any other way and treated him very much like a younger brother. It was his military service. So I think this was a very consistent Beth thing, in addition to the show kind of talking to veterans. Let's play this butcher clip because I want to talk about it a little bit.
Everett tells me that you cut the finest T-bone in the state.
I do.
Well, I got 6 Angus outside with nowhere to take them. My husband and I were building a small outfit. Quality, family run. Like you.
Let me show you what I do. We're a 4-man operation, but I'll stake our work against the big boys any day.
I need the best cuts to hook the best buyers. Prime grade, certified Angus.
How old are your steers?
Around 22 months.
Good.
We'll lead with ribeye, filet, T-bone, peak marbling.
You know what you want.
That's what I need.
I charge market rates. On the level.
Thank you. How long?
3 weeks.
How's 2?
I think it's an interesting clip because I think it definitely sets out that Beth knows this business. She knows what she's looking for. She knows how to get the buyers she wants. But I like this clip the most because my favorite thing about Yellowstone, after the landscape porn and all that, Yellowstone is the best show ever, I think, at showing people being good at what they do. And this scene jumped out at me as a classic Yellowstone scene, watching those guys cutting into the meat, just the rapid fire banter between Claudio and Beth, like 4-man operation. You know, I got a best pieces to hook the best buyers. I want this, this, and this, and I get you this in 3 weeks. Now, how about 2? Respectful, but people being good at what they do. I love it so much.
It reminded me so much of when they brought Billy Clapper on, who was like the real life Texas spur and bit maker. And they like walked us through him making things and like actually took a lot of time showing like his craftsmanship. Like they would zoom in on different elements of like what cowboys wear, what ranchers wear, what the different tools that they use. And they would show you how those tools were being used and everything. And there was a lot to that I know people here in Texas talked a lot about. That was like, that felt so real. That felt like they were giving this authenticity that felt like it was like giving some education to the rest of the world about what it is to be a real craftsman. And yeah, this felt like that exact Billy Clapper moment to me, where we were just gonna learn about this industry, you were gonna understand, and you were gonna have respect for a 4-man operation.
I'm excited to see the name of this. If you know, for those that didn't stop and zoom in and read the words backwards on the door, I don't know why you wouldn't do that, or you weirdos. The name of the shop is Carne del Arroyo Seco. Now, Arroyo Seco means dry creek in Spanish, and actually is a river in California, Southern California. There are many places with the Arroyo Seco name in and around San Antonio, which we know from Everett's conversation with Beth before they get here. That's where they're headed. So I couldn't place this maybe as a real shop. It had really good set deck if it is not normally a butcher shop. The signage was really great. The background signage was really excellent. So if any listeners out there are from San Antonio, if you could let us know if Carne del Arroyo Seco is a real place, I would love to know that. I think their ranch is south of San Antonio, not north of it.
Definitely.
Because they said they're only from an hour from the border. And so we now have Goliad County, and now we have San Antonio. So I'm trying to kind of make pin marks about where they're located. I'm wondering if they're going to end up being closer to Corpus Christi than anything else, given where Goliad mines are. The fact that they had to drive through there, kind of in that southeast of San Antonio.
You know, they're filming it up by Dallas, though, up by Fort Worth. That's the funny thing. They're like in Weatherford.
Yeah. Well, the Dutton Ranch is a Weatherford ranch. That's
way north, and that's like west of Fort Worth.
This ends Beth and Everett for the episode, this section. Everett knows Beulah Jackson, refers to her as Miss Rhea Paloma. Maybe saying that in like, maybe that he went to high school with her. Big fact that he had gone to high school with the Jeannie and with Billy Edwards, did 2 tours with him. We learn later on. There's going to be history between Everett and Beulah. I'm curious what you think the history is, or this is prediction hour. What do we think the relationship here is going to be?
Okay, so I don't know that I thought they were completely contemporaries. Like, I would have put Everett in his late 70s and Beulah probably more in her 60s, late 60s. So given that, I wouldn't have thought they went to high school together, but I guess that's plausible. I kind of think that he was saying it like that, like in terms of like just like king of the county kind of thing, queen bee. Do you think they're actually contemporaries? Do you think that they're much closer in age?
I think there's less than a decade between them, so maybe they didn't go to high school together, because I'm thinking of the Edwards. They seem much older than Beulah. But
you just said that the Edwards and Everett were more similar.
Well, yeah. That's what I'm thinking aloud. I guess Beulah's not as old as them. But we know that they were in high school together, Everett and Jeannie, because she was his high school crush, which was not, reciprocated.
Right.
So maybe he's 7-8 years older. In real life, Ed Harris is 8 years older than Annette Bening. So if we're using that as a scale, he's 75, she's 67. If he's the town vet or the Rio Paloma vet to call, I'm sure he's done a lot out at the Jackson Ranch. He says something to Rip along the lines of, if Jeannie and Billy sold you the ranch, then you and I probably have more in common than you think. Which seems, all of these comments seem to place him on one side of the fence, and Beulah and the Jacksons and Ten Petal Ranch on the other side of the fence. At a minimum, I think that's what I'm picking up on. I'm just curious if there's going to be any other history here between these two.
I mean, it makes sense. I think in a small town, everybody has some sort of history. Given, like you just said, like given his job, he is mixed up into everything. And it is not going to become a shock if his father was the town vet before. Just like we've learned about Azul and his dad, Hector. Like, I think you're going to find that a lot of these people have been here generationally, whether it's direct beef between two characters or like familial beef between people. I think that everybody's going to have some past with each other.
Let's get over to Rip and let's talk about Rip and Azul and Zachariah Moss, who is played by Mark Menchaca. The first is, and this isn't a Rip thing, this is actually a Rip and a Beth thing. We see them at auction buying Bullet, the big black Angus bull, for $10,000. Now, Beulah is bidding at them. Do you think she had any intention of actually buying this, or was she just fucking with them and driving up the price?
At first, I couldn't tell because she wasn't looking directly at them at first. But then it definitely seemed like she was doing like a side eye. And especially when Beth like sat forward and just faced her directly.
Right.
It
Subtle.
seemed like, yeah, that they were absolutely doing this. And I didn't know at that point if Beth was just trying to drive up the price, like, because she kept saying again. Like, I didn't know if like they were going to be willing to lose this bull in order to just drive up the price for Beulah.
I think she was no world where she would have sold everything she possibly had to get the bull. I think this was important for her to beat Beulah at this bidding.
And either which way, though, like I'm saying, she was trying to fuck Beulah over. Whether it was she was trying to drive the price up, and then she was going to say, "Okay, stop," and let her do it, and like, haha, look, she overpaid. Now let's get the next guy at a way better price. Either which way, it was like very clear she wanted to stick it to her. And Beulah either was playing it like much cooler, or I mean, just out of her side eye, like she never turned to actually look.
She's cold, man.
She just kind of like peeped a little bit. I don't know. Do you think she was trying to drive up the price, or really trying to get it?
I agree with you, not at first, because I don't even think she realized who it was, because she hasn't met Rip yet. So not until Beth sits forward and then she makes the connection. But then I think she was driving it up more as like a test, because she could have kept going, because obviously from what we seem to understand about Tempetal, like 10,000 is a drop in a bucket for them. So she really wanted this bull, or really wanted to screw them over, and she could have kept trying to drive the price up. If she bid on it at 6,000, then I'm sure she was fine to actually end up buying it at 10,500 if Rip and Beth decided not to pursue it, right? So right. I think she was having a little bit of a fun, but then I think she wanted to test, how in are you? I know you can't be very cash rich yet. You have to be cash strapped, cash poor. What's your commitment to this game here?
Yeah. I agree, but it was definitely a piss and match, man.
It was. I am beyond excited to see Beulah and Beth go at it. I think this will be the best match Beth has had in maybe ever. I gotta tell you, when Rip lets Bullet out into his pen, my heart grew 3 sizes for old Bullet. He came off that trailer with such a swagger, Caroline. Oh. And he was just like, I'm Bullet. And he just moseyed without instantly, he's a very good acting bull, maybe. He literally sauntered over to the lady cows. It was hysterical. I was literally hooting out loud because he comes off of the trailer like such a boss. And he literally is like shaking his little butt as he's walking to the lady cows. It was a very sweet scene.
I appreciated that because the guy who is delivering the bull wanted to use what appeared to be like a cattle prod. The way that Rip protected his bull and was like, don't use that, don't do that. I was having a whole moment of that. I wasn't looking at Bullet so much. I was looking at Rip and being like, and this is why he's a good guy. Because first of all, I was sitting there and I said out loud, I was like, how dare he try to zap a bull that's not even his? You don't have any right to do that. I disagree with doing it at all, but I really disagree with doing it when you don't even own this bull anymore. Get out of here. I was pissed and so glad that Rip stuck up for his animal and was like, stop. That was 100% what I was taking away from that scene.
He didn't just tell him to stop. He
yelled at him.
He said, what are you doing, you fucking dipshit? I think that's what he said.
I'm so glad. Yeah, and to have that bull come out as his first moment on this ranch being hurt like that. Right. No.
Rip smiles at him as he swaggers off, all Captain, big bull. He says to him, go earn your keep. Everyone earns their keep on this ranch. Even the bull has to. It's just funny because the name of this episode is Earn Another Day. So when I heard him say earn your keep, I was like, oh, the episode title. It's kind of like a play on the words. It's about Bullet all along.
That's
but just a little nice little moment. But again, these moments you get in these Yellowstone shows that you don't get in other shows, I love it. It really brings me in deeper. It's the little things that really end up making me appreciate the authenticity of the show and the mission, and that they are trying to educate, like you said. There is maybe it's not their primary goal, maybe it's not even their secondary goal, but there is a goal here to educate the population, the viewing audience on this way of life, and show them how things are done and or how things should be done. Maybe it's aspirational because maybe most people offloading that bull, maybe they do zap them just to get on the move. This isn't Yellowstone with thousands of herd, right? Thousands of head. This is 175. Like, everything is precious here. Speaking of, did you catch in the flashback, the 8 days later flashback at the beginning of the episode, the little baby calf was feeding from the bottle, the one that Rip had saved?
I was feeling for Kelly because that little baby was going after that milk and she was getting bounced around trying to hold it. I thought it was so cute. I was like, oh, I hope that little guy, I hope we see him amongst all these like black Angus. I hope we see this little brown cow.
Let's pull up to the prison. Here's Rip in his truck at a jail while people are getting sprung. Classic Rip recruiting. But then it quickly becomes obvious. This is, for people that maybe didn't pay attention in the first episode or whatever, Zachariah is the guy that Azul had as a recommendation in mind, and that is why Rip is here to pick him up out of jail. First impressions on Zachariah from how he interacts with Azul and how he interacts with Rip.
There was a lot of caution that was going on, a lot of walking on eggshells, because there was a lot of careful things that the way that they were talking to each other, they were watching, they would like be speaking in Spanish to each other, Azul and Zachariah, and then when like Rip was kind of like listening from the other room, but then he like comes in and they quick do a side eye. There's a lot of careful stepping that's going on here. I don't know if it would have been seen as some sort of like liability or vulnerability to act like they had all this history together. That seemed a little weird. Like, well, obviously Azul knew him and everything. So why does he have to act like we can't talk about how we know each other or whatever? Like somehow them talking about the past or something was going to be, I don't know, intimidating to Rip. Maybe he didn't want them to be such good buddies or something like that. But there was a lot of kind of looking to the side, looking at Rip like cautiously, like should we keep talking? Should we not be talking? Should we quit talking? It made me wonder a lot about what's more that has happened between Azul and Zachariah, but then Zachariah in general. Like, seems like you've got some stuff here that we're going to unpack real carefully. Like, we're not just going to spill out all your business.
Seems like a very juicy backstory that I'm excited, just from how they teased it here. I'm excited to learn about it because, so here are the things I think we can glean, right? Either because they said it explicitly or just because you and I have watched TV shows and it seems where they're leading us. We know he's a recovering alcoholic. He found God in jail, but he's a recovering alcoholic. We can surmise that he has been in jail for quite a long time because his first words to Azul were, Azul says, "You got old," and he says, "You got tall." So this is someone that Zachariah knew Azul as a child, which we also know he worked with or knew at least Azul's father, Hector, because he said whatever the thing is that Zachariah did, presumably to get him put in prison for a long time, Hector, Azul's father, is the only one who didn't shun him or turn his back on him, and in fact visited him every third Sunday every month that he was in jail until he died. He said, "Your father was a gift from God." There is a bond between these two men, and also whatever Zachariah did to land himself in jail must play into the history of the Edwards Ranch or the Tempetal Ranch or both, I think. It's not going to be something minor. It's going to be something very significant. I mean, we can go on the fact that Zachariah sees Rip driving out at the end of the episode to go to the new train station. There must be a question mark about what did he see? Did he just see the truck pulling out? Because then that's not much of anything.
Even just talking about stuff that seemed pretty benign. Like I said, just like the fact that they have known each other so long. They seemed, the second they switched into Spanish, I was like, oh, okay. Rip's already said I don't speak Spanish. And apparently can't even glean a word because a lot of the stuff they were saying was pretty basic. It wasn't exactly like complicated to understand. They weren't speaking that fast and the words weren't that complicated.
Well, he knows Mount Up now. Fucking Manance, right? He knows that now. I think from my feeling from Azul's point of view is maybe he knows whatever Zachariah did. I'm sure he has not shared that with Rip. So he may be worried about that. But also when Rip is starting to ride out to start the day and the two men are hanging back, he says to him, Rip doesn't suffer fools. Be quick, be good, you'll be fine. But even Azul, because he watched what Rip did with Rob Will, who in Azul's head must be the biggest big bad in this area, and Rip disarmed him and punched him without a thought in the world. So I think from Azul's point of view, Rip is someone definitely not to fuck with. From everything, and I think Rip just gives off that vibe. So I think there is some caution here. Like, one, I recommended you, please don't fuck this up for yourself or for me. And also Azul's keeping whatever the secret is that would put Zachariah in prison, because I'm sure Rip does not know it. The way he was listening, trying to eavesdrop on their conversation, tells me he doesn't actually know very much about Zachariah. I knew you were going to love this clip. I isolated this so you could play this anytime you want.
God loves cowboys.
One more time.
Ridiculous.
God loves cowboys.
If that's not on every T-shirt and hat for this show's merch going forward, I make a bet in the merch store at Paramount Plus right now there must be a God Loves Cowboys T-shirt, which I will buy because I think it's a great line. So
I love it.
Did you have the same thought of me of why are we staring at this unsafe mine sign while Zachariah's taking a pee?
I 100% clocked it. As soon the way that he was staring at it, I was like, all right, what are we doing here? What is this about? Why are we looking at these mines? And at first I was like thinking like, is he thinking like, oh boy, I stopped at a bad spot. Like we shouldn't be pulled over here at an unsafe mine area. You know, like it's a bad idea to like pee on an unsafe mine area, right? And then my second thought was, okay, what's up with this mine? And like, what are we doing? And is this coming back? So yeah, I clocked it, put it on my bulletin board.
If you zoom in on the sign, it says unsafe mine, stay out, stay alive, Goliad Mine Shaft 2, Goliad Mine Shaft 7.2 UEC Ghost Cut. So I looked up the Goliad mines, I was just curious. And like I said earlier, they're real mines. It's one of 4 sites owned by UEC, which we see on the sign, which is the Uranium Energy Corp. It's a uranium project located in north central Goliad County, which is in the south of Texas. The project comprises 13 uranium mining leases spanning over 1,421 acres southeast of San Antonio. Real place. I hope people don't start going there for tours. That seems dangerous. Connecting the dots when we see him at the end, does this seem as safe a place to be dumping bodies as the train station did up in Montana?
The train station was such a specific situation. We should explain it to everybody because we're going to keep referencing it. The main thing about the train station is the idea that nobody has jurisdiction there. But that is the main thing you need to know about the train station, that basically you cannot really be tried for any type of crime in this area because nobody is in charge of it. This is not the case with the mine. Do I think it's as safe? No, I don't think it's as safe because somebody's got jurisdiction over this area.
And those mines are still being used. I mean, this is an ongoing, it's not an abandoned unsafe mine. It is a still in use unsafe mine.
But I love it that Rip comes in town and is like eye spying where he can dump bodies. Like he's like, oh, hey, what's that sign say?
Now, that being said, though, were you surprised that he had been keeping it just in a deep freezer on the property where Azul and Zachariah were? I mean, Zachariah is sleeping next door to where he was keeping this body. It didn't strike me as careful as Rip would normally have been in the past. But maybe he just didn't have a place at that moment when he first discovered the West Breakfast to bring the body.
I was surprised when he opened the cooler and when I saw him in there, I was like, oh, geez. But I didn't think that hard about like, well, where else could he put it or what else could he have done with it or whatever. So I guess I'm just going to think really handy that they had a freezer out there and available for use. I didn't really know what he was going to have done. The whole thing. I guess I didn't put that much thought into it until it was like unfolding in front of me. And then when I saw the body, I was like, oh, we're doing this now. Oh, God. Okay. Like, this is what's happening.
But everyone put a pin in. What did Zachariah see exactly? Because I think that's going to be one of those things. The other Zachariah thing to mention is when they're approaching the Dutton Ranch, Zachariah, this may be looking too much into it, but there's a tone when he says, "Oh, you bought the Edwards Ranch." So he didn't realize, he hadn't put together Azul at this point, it doesn't seem like, and he didn't actually know where they were going when he got into the truck. Just that this crazy cowboy man has offered him a job, and, God loves cowboys. There's a tone there when he says, "Oh, you bought the Edwards Ranch." He knows the Edwards Ranch. This is not a surprise to him. So did he work here previously, or did he work at another ranch? I think I was assuming he worked here because he seems to have known Hector Ramos, Azul's father, so well. But I guess maybe he was just a ranch hand known in the area. Maybe he was a former foreman at the 10 Pedal. I don't know. The mystery of Zachariah is going to be one of the fun things, hopefully, that we explore during this season, because I was instantly pulled into it.
Okay, so the biggest deal, I appreciate Zachariah, but we got to go back to what stuff we were talking about at the very beginning when you brought up Cole Hauser had an issue with Rip not telling Beth about the body. This was a huge issue for me because I am Team Cole on this in terms of like, Chad, I think you're wrong. I think you are wrong. I do not think that Rip would keep this from Beth. And I really dislike the idea that we are instantly creating some sort of problem in their marriage because I don't want this. I want the two of them to be in lockstep, going against the world together. We have spent season after season with the will they, won't they, push and pull. They were together, yes, but they weren't getting married. They couldn't seem to get it together. And now they finally got it together. And they're this little family of three. And you're immediately going to cause a problem between the two of them. Oh, I don't like this at all. And there is absolutely no evidence that Beth would not have Rip's back in this and that she would have valued secrecy in order to keep her from getting her peace, from getting disrupted. I disagree with that entirely. Beth is a big, strong girl who is willing to listen and take on anything. And I think it really undercuts their relationship and how much respect that he has for her, that she can take anything, she can hear anything, and she's not going to fall apart. I would have been fine with only Zachariah not coming out there and being the fly in the ointment. But there's no reason to add this layer of keeping it from Beth.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the show and Yellowstone addressed these kinds of things several times before Beth and Rip are actually formally together, on a consistent basis. An issue about Rip having to dispose of a body at the train station comes up, and Rip does not tell her about it. And it is awkward for him. And she knows there's something going on that he's not telling her, and he keeps it from her. And we learn actually at the very end, it's the last part of season 5A when John is still alive. Beth only learns about the train station then, and only because Jamie spills the beans to her. She didn't learn about it from Rip. She didn't learn about it from her father or from Casey. She learned about it from her biggest enemy on Yellowstone. And so there was betrayal feeling there already. And if anyone could handle the news of found a dead body on our property, got to dispose of it, we don't know what this is, Beth would, of course, understand that, have his back, and probably be able to problem solve it even better than him, because she is ice cold and a smart woman. I had assumed that he had told her.
Me too.
When she wakes, and she's waking up every night and looking for you, because in the first episode, she wakes up startled. She's clearly having some kind of bad dreams, and she wanders outside and she finds him sitting out there drinking. It's 4 a.m. again. She's going to wake up. She needs you to be there. And so you're not doing some chivalrous thing here. This is cowardly, and this is going to become a problem, because now this does create tension in their marriage, because it's going to come up. Someone's going to say something like to Beth about a dead body having been on your land. What do you know about it? And Beth is going to be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, first of all, she knows he's gone. You think she's going to... The next thing is a conversation with Rip about where the fuck you are at this time of day. I appreciate you're looking forward to a problem coming. There's a problem the second that man steps foot out of that truck. Because she is going to be like, where were you? And you're right. She needs him there. She has lost everything. To wake up in the middle of the night and have him not be in bed would be terrifying. And again, I'm looking at you, Chad Feehan, because I'm saying to you, like, if you think that Beth would prefer to be in the dark, would prefer to wake up into an empty bed, and you think that woman's just going to roll over and be like, oh, well, and not go wander off into the lawn and start looking for him and everything.
It made me so sad how she was looking like.
Because you cannot appreciate the loss this woman has had.
Yeah.
You know, she has had her father die. She has had so much freaking loss that for her, you would like go crazy immediately looking for him, because your worst nightmare is he like had a heart attack in the barn, or something horrible happened,
or there's a fire or something, like
anything.
Like your
one
whole
of
life
the animals is
right.
hurt or something, like whatever is going on. Like the idea that she would somehow prefer to just like, or even be able to like roll over and be like, well, Rip will fend for himself. My peace is most important.
Right.
Come on, Chad.
Right, because nothing is getting him out of bed without telling her he was going to work, unless it was something horrible happening. Like, she knows that because that's the only thing that's getting him out of bed. Like, even when he woke up and he was like, I missed the mountains. Like, he wakes up early, right? Their day starts early, maybe not 4 a.m. early, but it does wake up early. But they've always shown us how Rip always kisses her. He always lets her know in some way, even if she's sleepy, that he's getting ready to go to work.
Leaves the yellow rose, all the things. He wouldn't just wander off.
Yeah. Problem.
Chad, this was a horrible move, and I dislike that this is not over in any form or fashion between them.
Right.
Okay, we've got this body and we've got a whole other storyline to deal with. Now you have like sown some seeds of bullshit between the two of them that I don't want.
This is retreading issues that have been in Beth's life and betrayal feelings in her life about this exact thing, specific train station thing being kept from her. And now you're just repeating the pattern. It's a problem.
I don't like it one bit.
And also, it is not a safe mine. You're going to go start tossing bodies down there. You're going to end up falling into that hole. This isn't just like the cliff where you could kick it off, which I guess is also unsafe, but you have been doing it for so long. Those rickety boards, like, what do you think they're protecting? And also, that body, it did not take very long before it thudded. I was expecting something where it was like a good 10 seconds before you heard something. It was like 2 or 3 seconds before you heard a thud. That is not a deep shaft.
Yeah, this is very worrisome. The whole thing. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. All right, let's move on to the third in the family. Let's talk about Carter and his blowing off school, which I do not like and do not approve of, to go drink with Oriana. Let's listen to, I thought this was an interesting conversation with Oriana, and I think there is some good Beth-like advice in here. Let's take a listen.
Okay.
Now you're a mystery, Carter. Kinda handsome. Kinda not. Parking lot hero, crack shot. What else you had behind the mask? Look, I'm sorry I got you mixed up in all my drama at the rodeo.
Just glad to get mixed up in something.
You know, nobody's gonna make it easy for you, Carter. You've got to do that yourself. You just gotta say, fuck it. Fuck all of them. And do whatever the fuck you want.
I think it's important that Carter heard no one's going to make it easy for you, because I think that's something that both Rip and Beth would have told him. But as both of us being parents of teenage boys, sometimes it is heard better coming from someone else than coming from your parents, that no one is going to make it easy for you.
Here's the thing. Again, if you've watched Yellowstone, I just saw this clip of Carter, and Beth is talking. This was a long time ago when he was a little guy, and Beth is kind of mouthing off, giving him biz, and Carter goes, "I'm too worried about what I'm going to eat tonight and where I'm going to sleep to worry about anything else you're saying." And that's the part where I'm like, Oriana, you have no clue what you're talking about. You see this kid and you think these are his loving parents and he's just had this easy schmeezy life. Bullshit, lady. Like, you have no idea. And I feel bad for all of the watchers right now who don't remember Carter's backstory. And the fact that this kid was kicked around, didn't know where his next meal was coming from, didn't have a place to sleep. This is not who Oriana thinks Carter is. I wasn't going with the Beth of it all. Only you could compare them in that Beth was totally blown back when he said that to her, because it was like, oh my God, like, what am I saying to this little boy? What am I trying to teach him right now when he is just trying to freaking survive? He really can't tell her anything, especially now as we're finding out who she really is. But the whole thing is like, this boy, and especially if you guys have not watched Yellowstone, he has had it horrible, okay? This life that you see with Beth and Rip now is where he is now. But he did not come from a good place or an easy life in any way. He doesn't really need this speech. Oriana, you of anyone, going back to the mansion that is the Jackson house, why don't you look in the mirror for a minute?
So even if you know it already, I think it is good advice to hear. But it did strike me as something that Rip and or Beth would both say to him, though.
But why would he need that to be said to him?
I think she was kind of telling him that being so shy, because he said something like, I was just happy to mix it up with something. He is coming off as very meek. And I think she was addressing the meekness, the Roosevelt quote from last week and the Whitman quote from the Untold Want quote from last week. Like, you have to go out, and Beth says, go out and have some fucking fun. But you have to go out and take it. You have to go take the world. You have to go take what you want and say, fuck it. That's why this resonated with me. Not that Oriana, I agree with you. I think she's coming from this ivory tower in a lot of ways. Now, it does not seem like her life is easy either. I mean, she's got a drughead father. She's got Beulah, who seems to be very hard on her, or expect a lot of her. Not hard on her, but expect a lot of her. And obviously, she's self-medicating. I mean, she must be around the age. Maybe she's of legal drinking age, but her response to her grandmother is, I already drank my dinner, thanks. And because Carter does seem to be like, I'm going to sit at this table. Okay, now they're mean girling, so I'm going to go up here. It feels like he's probably eating lunch in a bathroom stall, like a late 90s rom-com, you know? I think he's at an age where he needs to assert himself more. And I think that's what she was trying to tell him.
I guess. I remember too much about what he's already been through to be like, eating lunch in the bathroom stall is nothing of what he's been through. You know, I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking to Oriana and anybody who thinks that she should, she's going to wag her finger in his face. She's a piece of shit. That's what she is. She pulled up and basically set up for this kid to get into trouble, pulling out the beer and telling him to skip class and all that stuff. Oh, man.
I know. I don't like that.
What kind of loser is this that is hanging around the high school? If she was a boy and he was a girl, we would be railing about what this person is doing. We would say, this is a predatorial act. This is insane. She is a high school child, whatever. Just because it's a boy, Carter, and she's some good looking girl, everyone's like, oh, she's got words of wisdom. No, she does not. She is a predator. She is a mess, and she's trying to take down someone else. Gross.
We called last week that this felt like it was going to end up being some kind of Romeo and Juliet situation. At least, kids from two warring factions. The sequence is, he says, can I see you again? She looks at her phone. She has 5 missed calls from her dad, who turns out to be Rob Will. And then she's got texts that say, where are you? Answer your phone. She is sending me to rehab. And then Grandma Beulah, dinner is ready, come home. And her demeanor completely changes. And she looks up at Carter, very stone-faced, very cold, and says, I've got a boyfriend, Carter. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Oriana. I know you're not a fan of Oriana, but as a character goes, it struck me that for whatever reason, I don't think she really has a boyfriend. Not that it would, I don't think maybe she does, but I don't think she has a boyfriend in a way that would keep her from seeing Carter until she sees all of this interaction on her phone. If you give it a good viewing, then I think you take it something like, I can't drag this sweet boy into my bullshit. Or it's some kind of embarrassment about what her situation is. I mean, her father's going off to rehab and her grandmother is, controlling or whatever it is. But those messages and her change in demeanor seem to be very connected.
Well, she probably does have a boyfriend. I mean, when you and I talked about this offline, you said there's probably a bunch of guys who think
right.
That,
I mean,
that
she was getting out of the car with the
girlfriend.
steer wrestler Hoyt. I mean, that's how that's how she met him. I'm sure.
So I'm sure she does have people who do think that they are together in some way. I don't know.
Does she get points for you then for telling him no and seemingly cutting it off with him?
I don't know, because earlier than that, I mean, she's putting her legs on him. She's saying, like, basically she's goading him into making a move.
That's because that was all before she got those messages, like a night and day switch, it seemed like.
No, it was like a cold bucket of water over her head. I mean, first of all, she got called home. So she had to shut all this down. So, I mean, she was basically being yanked by the collar at that point. I really don't like this character. I really feel like does she exist in the world? Sure. Is she the kind of girl that like Carter needs to stay far, far, far away from? Yes. Will that just make her more interesting to him? Yes. I mean, you didn't really answer me about if they were switched genders, you wouldn't be remotely okay with this.
We would absolutely be calling this predatory. Absolutely. I led by saying I didn't like that she pulled him out of school at all, nor do I endorse the drinking of the beer or the shooting of the guns. Another Wheeler Dutton with their fingerprints on guns.
Ugh, that's not great.
No, stop. You know what made me happy? When Rip was dealing with Wes's body, he had his gloves on. Thank God. He remembered them. Rip, never take those fucking gloves off. Always have your gloves on, Rip. Always.
I thought the same thing. I was like,
hoodies
oh my
off,
God, please
gloves
have
on.
gloves. Please have gloves on. I felt the same way.
Like it or not, this moment did give us one of our sweet moments in the episode where Carter very gingerly is trying to ask advice about girls from Rip. What did you think of Rip's advice of just listen? Whether it's good or bad or whatever, just listen.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm qualified to say what man advice to son should sound like. Maybe you should answer that. Sure, listening is always a good idea.
I think when you're with someone like Beth, you probably don't have a lot of options other than just listening a lot of times.
True.
But I think at some point you have to do more than listen. I think the other part of that is, and then you have to act. At some point, your partner is also going to ask you, or not ask you, but you should realize you have to act on something.
He basically did sit and just listen to Oriana. I mean, he didn't really have a lot to say the whole time, or do. Beth is a very specific type of woman who knows what she wants to say and doesn't always need input. But I think the just listening part only gets you so far.
Let's move over to Tempetal and let's stick with Oriana. Like you said, how she knows what she has in a child with Rob Will. Seems very much like she knows what she has with a granddaughter with Oriana. I think they both had points here, and I think they were both wrong in here. She brings up Hoyt, the handsy steer wrestler, touching my granddaughter. How does that look? Beulah's concern is not necessarily with her granddaughter. It's over the PR of the incident.
Yeah. Which is terribly sad.
But at the same time, she's also saying you have to be perfect if you hope to run this ranch one day, which does not seem to be something. You have
to be perfect. Just be a little more middle of the road would be just fine. She's going and picking up children at the high school and getting them drunk and shooting guns at them. She's just asking her to come in and eat dinner like a human. The bar is actually not that high for this girl.
Well, Beulah says you have to be perfect.
I don't think that means what you think it means. I think Beulah would be cool with her just acting like a regular person.
Well, I think that would be a start, but I think she was saying an unspoken thing of here as a woman, if you hope to run this giant ranch and continue this legacy, you have to be perfect or close to perfect. Because things that men will be tolerated and get away with, like your father, you cannot and hope to get to where I am. I think that's how I took it anyway, that she was acknowledging the double standard that I'm sure Beulah has had to deal with in order to become as powerful in her operation and running this ranch as she is.
See, this conversation feels premature. Everything we've seen of Oriana and everything we see with Beulah, they are talking from two different universes.
Yes.
Like, talking about this girl running the operation is so far from remotely what is happening in the real world here. I get having this conversation with this girl at some point, but then you needed to make her 10 years older, and you needed to like have her have actually any amount of adult qualities. Like, she's a child. She's acting like a child. I don't care if the girl is 25. She's acting 15. What are you doing? This girl is like number 50 on the list of who could run this ranch. Like, I've got a whole bunkhouse full of guys who would be in better places to run this ranch. So for me, yeah, okay, Beulah, have this conversation with this girl. This is second season conversation. Like, this girl has to be acting completely differently for you to be talking about the double standards between men and women. We haven't seen enough of this girl to remotely be having this discussion.
Beulah acknowledges this, though, because she says, well, I hope I never grow up to be anything like you. I pray that I don't grow up to be anything like you. And Beulah's response is, well, grow the fuck up and eat your dinner. Like, you know, which made me laugh out loud, you know, like when she's like, grow the fuck up and eat your dinner before it gets cold. Like, it was just very kind of funny.
Yes, ma'am. And that part, I was like, oh, geez, like the whole thing. I don't know. This girl is exhausting to me. We can't play games like she's going to be sort of a high schooler and also the protege to the business empire.
I think there was a parallel for me here, not on Oriana's part, but on Beulah's part, to John Dutton in the beginning episodes of Yellowstone when Casey is pretty newly back from the war. John, especially after Lee gets killed, goes to Casey, who has never had an active hand in the ranch. We learn that it is very clear. Rip has been the guy. It's been Jamie. It was Lee. It was Jamie doing the legal stuff, and then it was Rip. So it was Lee, the oldest son, and then Rip was the foreman. Casey had nothing. He obviously a great horseman and great breaking in horses. That was like his specialty, but never had anything to do with the running of the Yellowstone. And John turned to him and was like, well, you're obviously going to run all of this. Like, and now you have to learn how to be. And then they throw Rip out of his house and they make him the foreman. Like, it's a whole thing. And so it's this idea, for me, I was seeing a parallel between Beulah saying to this girl who has like you said, she is as far from being ready or willing or wanting to run this ranch. You might as well have been talking to the dog about it, as Casey was when John said out of nowhere, well, you're going to obviously run this, 500,000 acre farm. So I think it was more about the idea of these powerful patriarchs and matriarchs that are a little bit out of touch about their progeny and the expectations.
Yeah, but those two people are very different. I mean, I agree that Casey hadn't ever had a hand, but he had been to war.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not about Casey or Oriana. It's about for me, the comparison was more about Beulah to John. They seem to be very similar to me.
Then what I would say is that Beulah is grasping at straws. I mean, this is very different to me, and I appreciate what you're saying.
It made me whiplash. Like, you're her? Like, I'm sure Joaquin probably isn't great to hear that either.
If I was Joaquin, I would be rip shit, because not only of course it's him, but if he's married and he has kids, why wouldn't they be the logical people? They needed to make her either younger or older or something. She's at a weird place for both sides of it. Hanging around with high schoolers and being considered the legacy of the ranch is like, those are too far apart from one another for me.
Let's talk about Joaquin a little bit, because while he is filling in Beulah on cleaning up the West mess, he stops and asks her, does my father know about this? And Beulah doesn't miss a beat. She says the day-to-day running of the ranch and the ranch in total is my domain and of none of his concern. Very interesting, because you and I had a conversation last week, and I think we're still both right about it. This idea that Rob Will and Joaquin have different fathers.
Yeah.
We don't know if Rob Will's father is still alive or still around in any capacity, but it seems Joaquin's father is still around and is someone Joaquin is at least in contact with. but obviously not involved in the ranching business.
I think when you say the ranch is my domain, not his, that screams divorce and messy, bad divorce where she got the ranch in the, proceedings. So I think this guy could show up. I kind of want him to show up. I badly want him to show up. It feels
like, especially if Joaquin is going to start getting forced out for fucking Oriana, he's going to have an issue with that.
Yes.
And also we got real strong Jamie John vibes here when Beulah says, in any way, the West mess is actually your fault, Joaquin, because you failed to close on buying the Edwards Ranch for me. To which Joaquin doesn't miss a beat back and says, well, they never liked us. And it turns out he has also been digging into the Duttons. Everyone has been digging into the Duttons. Sheriff Wade has been looking into the Duttons. We see Beulah looking about John's death at the end of this episode. Joaquin is very up on who the Duttons are. A lot of research being done into the old Duttons of Montana. Interesting because that was a nice bookend to Jeannie saying early in the episode that the Jacksons had wanted this place for 20 years, but they would turn it into something soulless. Beulah very much would like this ranch and blames her son, who seems to be the only competent one here. There's a brewing thing here for me of how much will Joaquin take before Joaquin snaps.
Well, I think we're moving into Whitney Ayers territory, and I think that there's a fair shot that she helps break Joaquin.
Whitney Ayers. She shows up and is immediately not buying anyone's bullshit. She is yelling at Austin, who is the cowboy that we see in the first episode who wakes up and checks his clock, which I think was also around 4 a.m. Everything happens at 4 a.m. apparently. And he notices Wes's bunk is empty and he hears like a truck leaving. That is this guy, Austin Lewis. She is not buying it immediately that he would just run off. That maybe back in the day, Wes would have been the guy to run off, but we learn Wes was actually the foreman of the 10 Pedal Ranch, and that having a child, little baby Colt, changed him and he would not run off. She is definitive about this. She takes her stuff. I think no one saw this coming. I don't think Joaquin saw this coming, that she would have the fortitude to go to the sheriff. But after saying some pretty powerful words with Sheriff Wade, he agrees to open up a missing persons report. But when she accuses them that someone at the 10 Pedal knows more, I think it's very telling that he says, that's a pretty serious accusation. I don't know about you, but for me, it seemed very much that Sheriff Wade does not want anything to do with investigating 10 Pedal Ranch.
Not even a little bit. I think Beulah, obviously, she can make people's lives uncomfortable. It seems very clear to me. And she wouldn't hold back at the sheriff either.
And she can unelect sheriffs also.
I'm sure she can. Probably run right out of town.
And by the way, just because it made me giggle, because I'm a 12-year-old boy at heart, Sheriff Wade's first name is Handy.
Handy Wade.
Sheriff Handy Wade.
That's very funny. I was very proud of Whitney for not buying any of the crap about the other woman, especially. I thought that was one, like, first they're all, he just wandered off kind of business. And then the whole, actually, I think there was another woman. Oh man, 90% of women would fall for that bait. And I'm so proud of her for being like, nope, not my dude. This is not a thing. I was really surprised about her actually having the backbone to be able to turn that money down. I don't know if that was a good decision for her, but it was definitely hush money, and she showed that she was willing to, struggle financially in order to not go in for this. Really proud of her, because she could have easily just walked away and been like, Wes is an asshole, and just given it up.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm going to take it even a step further, because not only did it take a lot of strength of character to turn down, it was back last 2 weeks and next 2 weeks. That's a month of pay. She turned around. She said, fuck you, fuck your money. But then she escalated it by revealing that the sheriff had come by, which was not information Joaquin, as connected as he seems to be, was aware of. I'm sure this is a DEFCON 1 wildfire. There was a lot of wildfire imagery in his conversation with Beulah. The West Mess was a growing fire. Austin Lewis and Whitney asking questions, the wrong kind of questions, is a wildfire, a lot of wildfire imagery. But this is like a 4-alarm fire now, because if the sheriff is involved, there are going to be questions. There have to be. and we don't have a body. They don't know where the body is. Like, Joaquin is in a bad shape here, but I give her so much credit because she didn't only just shove the money back, she dropped the bomb about the sheriff. But you know what? You know it was not easy for her to do, because when she closes the door and she's listening for the car pulling away, she is breathing as heavy and as fast as you possibly can be. And the last scene we have of her in the episode is she is shoving all of their shit into black garbage bags while little baby Colt howls in the back room.
I was scared for her. My first thought was like, lock the door and do the chain. And the second that she slammed the door shut in his face, and then they turned the camera from the interior with like the door taking up like half the frame, I'm like, he's going to kick the goddamn door in. Like,
or he's going to come back with people.
My God.
Yeah.
But like right then though, like it was just going to happen right then, because the way that they had it like framed, like she was leaning against the counter. I'm doing it with my hands right now. And the door was like literally taking up half the frame.
It was like a horror movie shot.
Oh no. Like even the way the door was going to open, it wasn't going to open towards her. It was going to open away from her, which was going to like open the shot up. Oh no, we're about to see her get like blown the fuck away, aren't we? I appreciated her saying the sheriff thing. I appreciated that. I don't know that she should have said that.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think so, because now they know where to go to shut it down. Whereas if she hadn't said anything about the sheriff, I don't think they would have gone running off to the sheriff.
No, they would have been blindsided when the sheriff showed up. But now
which I think would have been better. Additionally, though, I am really proud of her for knowing you got to cut bait and get out of here. Good call. Get out of here. I hope she has family to go hide somewhere. I hope she can go far, far, far away. They did show that baby, and sometimes that can be a good shield. You know, like surely they won't blow up the truck with the baby and her in it, right?
I think they will in this show. I think
you think they will? You think they're going to kill a baby?
I think they could. I will tell you, when that baby was howling, when little baby Colt was howling, and she kept she was like, it's okay, but she was looking off screen as if he was in some kind of back room. I was like, girl, you should go check on him. He is screaming for a reason. And I thought, I had a whole thing in my head that there was going to be guys in like balaclavas holding the baby, being like, you need to shut the fuck up. Like,
well, we do have to say, remember what they were willing to do about Tate. Remember what they did to him.
Yeah.
So they're not above torturing children.
They are not about. That was a rough scene, and no big Tate fan or whatever, but like he was a little kid. But
but they were willing to do that.
That was a rough sequence that we had to live through with Tate, and the aftermath of him dealing with it.
Remember
really
him
rough.
hiding under the bed and everything. Oh,
and
my God.
Casey not being greatly equipped to deal with it. What a tough life for these guys in this bunkhouse who have families.
I mean, they sleep there and everything all the time. Like, it very much feels like, you know, for us, like we have like guys who work offshore and they like go for like weeks at a time and then they come back. It very much feels like that, even though you live in the same town. Like, it seems like you don't see your people. It, you know, going back all the way to, let's see, it would have been 1883. Remember the ranch hand who had the wife and the two kids like in town? Mm-hmm. We still live the same way now, where it's like, Dad's out on the ranch and he just lives there, like permanently living there, and like you don't get to see your wife and kids. And what a existence. Very, very hard.
Very hard. I mean the money has to be so good, I guess, to warrant it. But man, what a tough life though. Let's talk about Chet, because Chet gets an appointment by the fact that Wes is gone now. We learned Chet was the head wrangler, and now he gets promoted to to foreman of the ranch. What did you think of this conversation between him and Beulah, where first we learn a little bit about the Tempedal, that it was formed before the fall of the Alamo. It was founded by an Irish immigrant who stole his first steer, and the ranch was built on his grit. Now, she says the first steer was stolen in 1936. Did he steal this in the very, very early winter of 1936? Because the Alamo falls in March of 1936. I think she's playing with some Texas history there, some fast and loose Texas history. But interesting, though, that the Tempedal Ranch was formed based on a thief, who I guess was gritty. I mean, we're gonna promote the grittiness of it, but if you're looking to set them up as the villains, then you can say that they were larcenists from the get-go.
We were just talking about this, about Homestead, though, and like there's a lot of sketchy beginnings to different homesteads, I would say.
History washes away a lot of that stuff, so I guess. But Beulah seems very proud of it, though. I mean, she's literally got the ancestral steer mounted on her wall.
Yeah, that was kind of I don't know. What did you think about that? Because I kind of, some part of me was like gross, and some part of me was like, that's pretty cool to like have that original cow. See, I would have just wanted his horns, and I wanted him to have died like a natural death, and then they took his horns and put his horns up there. A natural, perfectly wonderful long life first. The fact that it was like his whole head and everything, I felt like a little more.
And it wasn't even the original. It was just an ancestor steer. So
well, it was like one down, right? It wasn't the original, but it was like one down, like the first.
Oh, what's it? I thought it was a more recent than that. I thought it was just from that same bloodline. But still, I agree with you. The horns would have been better. But her conversation with Chet is interesting because she says, I know you were there with Rob Will the night, what happened with Wes. Is this a not so subtle veiled threat that like you will go down for what Rob Will did if you step out of line? Is that how you took it, or was it something else? It was a threat, I think.
Yeah. That you're complicit, so don't act like you're like innocent in the situation at all. Like you're an accomplice no matter what. And my son's going to get away with it because, we're going to plead that he was insane because he was on drugs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what's your excuse? Like you drove the truck, you weren't, out of it, whatever. Like we're going to make a whole story about how this was your idea anyway.
Right, and you did handle the gun a little bit when Rip shoved it into your stomach before you put it in that plastic bag. So, she charges him with the first job is to reestablish order in the bunkhouse. No more questions, no more bullshit. She knows from him and from Joaquin that Austin Lewis is asking the wrong kind of questions. Whitney Ayers is around asking the wrong kind of questions. These are all things that need to be dealt with. Chet seemed to have been a pretty mild-mannered guy thus far in the show. I mean, he apologizes to Rip about the way Rob Will's acting. He seems shocked that Rob Will shoots Wes, but he doesn't hesitate to take that branding iron and beat the ever-loving shit out of Austin in that ring. And I did not miss this part of Yellowstone.
No?
No, it was a lot. It was a lot. It was the Foley sound was really on point. I felt like I heard all of the rib breaking, the wrist breaking. I felt like I felt all of it in my teeth.
I really thought he was going to actually brand one, literally, because I don't know. I'm with you, like on the I couldn't hit somebody, and so not that branding's like a good idea, but so when he started swinging, I was like, whoa,
right?
Like you could kill him.
He could have killed. I mean, because he had beat him much earlier, but then continued to go to what I think it was quote unquote teach a lesson. Because he kept getting up and kept swinging. I think he had Beulah's words in his ears, and I think this was his attempt at, you take one guy down and you don't have to fight the other ones kind of thing. Joaquin reports later on to Beulah, your brand new foreman already put one of your hands in the hospital. And she verifies, was it Austin? And he's like, yeah. And then she's kind of okay with that. Like, she's like, well, I think he's a good boy doing what he was supposed to be doing, was kind of how I took all of that.
I mean, I know he's got to reestablish some sort of order. I know he's got to try to show that he's the alpha and he's willing to take it that far, right? So I don't know. We've kind of seen this crap go on before. Remember in the bunkhouse where Rip would be like, let him fight it out kind of thing. Sometimes he would actually encourage it. Go ahead and, but if you're going to do it, just fucking do it. Do you remember that? He came into the bunkhouse and was like, y'all fight each other already.
Rip's thing was, if you were going to fight a man, you fight me.
Yes, but also fight it out.
But that was John's
not
thing.
No fighting.
Yeah, John made them fight it out. Remember, that was Lloyd and Walker. The fucking old Lloyd beating it. But that was John that made that happen. He made Rip do it.
I wasn't trying to say that Rip was in charge of it. I'm just saying that the bunkhouse at the Yellowstone wasn't about no fighting. That wasn't the rule. There was some understanding that fighting's gonna happen and we're gonna fight. That's part of it.
That was what I think we were seeing when Austin and Tommy, because Tommy, who was put in charge during the day because Chet had to go see Beulah, he's trying to tell Austin, shut the fuck up, just let it go. Wes is gone, just move on, because you're the one not letting this go. And Austin is like, you know very well he didn't just run off. Like, we need to talk about why Austin gives so much of a shit. I don't know what his relationship with Wes, but he seems extremely invested in what happened to Wes. Beyond just, he seems as concerned, if not more, than Whitney. And maybe it's just the fact that an important person here has been disappeared overnight. And maybe that's what's freaking Austin out.
I mean, that would freak me out. If you went to bed with a group of people and in the morning one person was gone, I think real quick you might be thinking, well, what's going to stop it from being me the next night,
Well, asking questions, Austin, that's what's going to do you.
Yes, that's
But
very
I
true.
think the fight Tommy and Austin were having, where they were just swinging punches and they both kind of fell, I think that felt more like the kind of bunkhouse fights that we would have seen in Yellowstone.
I agree. Where we weren't using weapons, we were just punching, and they were honestly just going to kind of like wear each other out, know?
Right. And then now get back to work. Like that, like I feel like the forum should have been like, are you fucking done? Now get back on your horses, you dumbasses.
You tired?
Right. Because he says to the other guy, who I don't know his name, he says, if they're not dead, get them tender, get them medical help. If they're not dead, I want them on a horse within an hour. Well, that's going to be real hard. I mean, you send him to the hospital. He's not going to be back on a horse within an hour. I get you're trying to establish control here, Chet, but also not great for bunkhouse morale either. I think the last thing we have to talk about in this episode is Rob Will. Rob Will agreed with you that he would be gone 2-3 days max, right? Because I think when we talked about this last week, I think, were you surprised that he left at all?
I didn't think he could be gone that long because I didn't think we could like just take him out of the fold, right? Like, because you can't introduce this villain and then just have him like go away like instantly. But at the same time, like I want him gone for a little bit longer. I really don't want him back after just one episode. I mean, how long would you be cool with him being gone?
I'm good if he doesn't return. I think Beulah. I think Beulah is
Let
a
him
much
just
more.
die in rehab.
I think
Something
Beulah,
happened.
or but like Sedona's really
wander
nice,
away.
and it's a 5-star rehab. Let him enjoy his time. But I think he won't be gone more than a couple of episodes. Would be my guess. Maybe something brings him back. I don't think it's going to be he broke out, because his mother is the one who told him to go. So it doesn't feel like he's going to like skip rehab. It feels like something like Beulah will summon him back home. Feels more to me like what it will be.
I wonder what his situation is. Like, can he sign himself out of rehab? And if he can, then all bets are off. If it's one of those things where somebody else has to sign him out, now I don't know the rules and I don't know what one situation would be over another.
Yeah, and he's
I
like,
really don't want him to.
No, I agree. I very much agree. Like, I think he's so over the top. If he's going to continue to be like we saw him in the first episode, I think he kind of drags down the really good tension because he's so cartoonishly villainous.
That is my Oriana of it all. Like,
well, that's his daughter, apple in the tree.
I
mean,
yep, they deserve each other. They're too much. They're too over the top.
Two things in here kind of make it work in my mind. That conversation that they're having when they're going to find Wes's body and move it. Rob Will is walking in front of Joaquin and he's baiting him. And he says, I don't think you've got the balls to bash me with a shovel. He's like, but you know I will. Like, he was aggressively trying to bait his brother. We haven't heard stepbrother yet, but I feel like it has to be a stepbrother situation, baiting him into swinging so he could beat the shit out of him. Really open aggression, like hatred level. It wasn't playful like brothers are playful fighting, even with like some testosterone behind it. This was, I don't like you, and I would be fine to put you down here next to dead Wes. Though it did make me laugh when he was like, his body was right here, because Robert is such an ass. But
if there was one dad in this whole mix, and if it turns out to be, then I don't know what to say. When Joaquin says to Beulah, where's my father? Like, my father in all of this, right? Not where's dad.
Right.
Dad is the collective of everybody here. And no, this is Joaquin's father and only his father. Has nothing to do with old Rob Will. I think that line alone should have told us two dads, two situations.
I very much agree. First, you have to start with the stepbrothers to explain why Joaquin and Rob Will are nothing alike in looks or in mannerism. Also, then, it seems very clear where Beulah scolds Joaquin, but also relies on him to actually be the competent one that runs things and does the paperwork. Whereas it seems like Rob Will has given kind of a Nepo baby type position in the ranch because he wasn't the foreman. Wes was the foreman. What was Rob Will's job here other than fucking around? So raised with a lot of money and wealth and no accountability and no consequences, I think the show is showing us how you get a Rob Will, and then you take one more, apple down from that tree, and then you get an Oriana. I think they are the fruits of Beulah having a favorite that she never demanded do anything or be accountable or responsible for their actions. Whereas I think Joaquin has been all having to make sure he's accountable for his actions because he's still getting blamed for shit that he never, they were never going to be able to buy the Edwards Ranch, and yet he's still being blamed for. Wes's dead body not being on that property is Joaquin's fault? What?
Right. I wonder if Rob Will's dad is more at play with the way that he's treated or whatever's going on there. Like maybe he covered up a lot of stuff. Maybe he allowed this behavior and kept Beulah from disciplining him or doing anything. We're looking at this Beulah and she's screaming at Oriana and she's yelling at Joaquin. So why not Rob Will? Right? Why did he get away with so much for so long? Maybe it's the missing parent that is the one who was the permissive one and kept Beulah from ever holding him accountable or anything.
Which takes me to, I think, the final question that I want to ask you, because I just saw this as conspiracy theory fodder on the internet. I'm curious if it holds any water. I don't think it does,
okay.
but maybe it's interesting.
I'm ready.
Everett had been married to Beulah, which would then potentially make him one of the fathers. I think the logic would say if that's true, then he would be Rob Will's dad.
I don't want that to be.
It would color our feeling about Everett in a way.
Yeah. And it would make me fearful for Everett that Rob Will's out here like this wild beast out here. Because I really want Everett to just stay quietly in his home with an Afghan and a cup of tea at the end of the night.
And enjoy riding with Beth and singing in the Split Heart Bar. How sweet. Everett getting up to the microphone to sing a little karaoke with the band.
Yeah, I don't want to think that Rob Will's out there as a potential problem for him. I don't like that one bit. Well, let's put a pin in that one, you guys. If you, as a listener, if you guys are thinking you know what? I mean, one of the things is no one else has been introduced as a potential dad. This is what I'm saying. Anybody.
Then maybe we have no. And maybe it's Zachariah.
Ooh.
Zachariah or Everett are kind of two single guys who would be roughly in the age range.
What if Zachariah makes sense more and that's why he can't deal with the 10 pedal at all? And then also,
the alcoholism.
We don't know why he was in prison. What if he took the fall for something that Rob Will did? Drugs or
or someone got murdered and drink was involved, because alcoholism is genetic and Zachariah seems
in general.
And Zachariah is recovering. But Rob Will clearly is not committed to it, and Oriana seems to be right on the same path.
Oh boy, I want to keep Everett out of that. Well, this has been a fascinating episode. I feel like I really enjoyed the flashback stuff, and I'm glad that they had that. We needed a little more world building. I'm glad to have all that. I hope Carter finds some other people to hang out with. He deserves a guy good friend. Not everything has to be about girls, Carter. So maybe find a buddy. That'd be nice.
I can do with a lot more rip grabbing Beth and going dancing.
Oh my gosh, you know what? For a hot second, I actually thought, and I actually said out loud, is this a flashback? Because, which sounds silly. I know it doesn't make any sense. But because we've seen him grab her arm before. Remember when that other woman came and started hitting on him?
Yeah.
So we've had a scene that looks extremely familiar to that. And for a second, I was like, are we having some sort of flashback? Are we having a memory? What is this?
Everett's singing to them.
It looked exactly the same, though. I was having a deja vu moment. So, yes, I could do with a lot more Rip and Beth, and I really don't want them to be fighting. So, this is Caroline.
And this is Mike. Thank you for listening to the Yellowstone Podcast, Dutton Ranch. If you wouldn't mind heading over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and rate, review, and subscribe. And while you're there, if you could, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps a lot in the promotion of the show. That is how those kinds of messages and those kinds of ratings is how Apple bumps and promotes the show and what it puts on its page, and so does Spotify. So you would be doing us a solid, and if you leave something nice for us, we're going to read it on the air and give you credit for it, because we want to hear from you.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.